My name is Elizabeth Rogers. I am 68 years old, a retired librarian from Seattle. When the train rolled into San Diego, I told myself I would see my son smile again. Michael had always been gentle, quiet, the kind of boy who carried books instead of footballs. It had been too long since we embraced, too long since I heard his voice without the filter of a telephone line. I carried a small suitcase and a bag of oatmeal cookies, his favorite since childhood. My heart beat fast, not from the walk but from anticipation. Mothers always imagine the reunion. The warm welcome, the open door, the familiar laugh. That is what I thought I would find. But the street was silent when I reached his house. The mailbox bulged with envelopes, some slipping onto the ground. Trash bags leaned against the fence, their sour smell carried on the afternoon air. The blinds in the windows were half closed, crooked, like no one had cared to straighten them. I stood at the doorstep, hand raised to knock, but something in my chest tightened. No footsteps, no music, not even the hum of a television. A home can tell you the truth before the people inside ever speak. Already I felt it. Something was wrong. I knocked once, then twice. No answer. I pressed my ear to the wood and heard a sound that did not belong in any house. A rough scraping breath, like someone dragging air across gravel. I tried the knob. Unlocked. Michael? My voice came out smaller than I intended. It is Mom. The entryway smelled of old beer and something sweet turning sour. A black trash bag had split open by the door, spilling paper plates congealed with orange grease. I stepped over it and followed the sound into the living room. He was on the floor beside the coffee table, curled on his side, arms wrapped around his middle. His face was gray-yellow, not the color of any healthy man. A thin line of spit had dried along his cheek. His eyes opened when I knelt. "Mom," he whispered. It was the rasp of a match striking concrete. I slid my coat under his head. "Breathe slowly. I am here." I touched his chest and felt every rib. He shivered though the room was warm. On the coffee table were 3 amber prescription vials without caps. One lay on its side, labels smudged. Furosemide 40 mg daily. Spironolactone 100 mg daily. The third had the pharmacy sticker half peeled. Lactulose 15 milliliters 3 times a day. Beside them sat a plastic cup with an inch of brown liquid and the sweet stink of rum. From the hallway music thudded. Pop beats too loud for the thin walls. A burst of laughter, high and careless, rolled through the house. The smell of alcohol grew stronger. Voices rose and overlapped, the way people talk when they are trying not to hear anything else. I pulled my phone from my pocket. The time was 6:41 p.m. I dialed 911. "San Diego emergency. What is your address?" The operator's voice was steady, practiced. "For 12 Cedar Way," I said. "My son is on the floor and cannot breathe properly. He has liver disease. He is conscious." "Is he turning blue? Is there bleeding?" "His lips are pale. No blood. His belly is very swollen. He is gasping." "Ma'am, keep him on his side. Clear the airway if he vomits. Help is on the way." As I spoke, more laughter burst from the back room. A woman's voice cut through the music. "Pour another one." I stood. "Michael, I will be right back." "Do not," he whispered, but there was no strength in it. The hallway carpet was sticky under my shoes. I pushed open the door where the music pounded and stepped into a room crowded with bodies and bottles. A folding table sagged under an arrangement of cheap vodka, 2 handles of tequila, a glass dispenser of something fluorescent green, and a bowl of limes drying at the edges. Someone had tossed a deck of cards into the ice bucket as a joke. The window was open but the air was heavy with beer and perfume. Sarah stood by the counter in a silver dress I did not recognize, one strap fallen to her shoulder. Her eyeliner had smudged, but her smile was bright and fixed. She lifted a bottle and called toward a circle of friends on the floor. "Who needs a top off?" "Sarah," I said. She turned. For a second her face went blank, as if she had seen me through a fog. Then she laughed lightly. "Elizabeth? You scared me. You should text before you drop in. Michael cannot breathe." I called an ambulance. A few heads tilted. Music kept thudding. Someone said, "Seriously?" Sarah's laugh broke. "He is fine. He always gets dramatic when he is tired. We are celebrating Nina's promotion." You remember Nina? I looked at the bottles. One had a receipt taped under it. The store name half torn but the total clear. $189.74. A second receipt lay on the counter beneath a coaster. Craft Emporium, $74.22 for specialty beers. The date at the top read today's date. Turn off the music, I said. Do not make a scene, Sarah said, soft and warning like a teacher with a child. To her friends she added, 2 minutes guys, and press pause on the speaker. The sudden quiet showed me the house. On the stove, a pot had burned dry and left a black circle. There was a pile of unopened mail on the microwave, rubber-banded and stained. I could see the top envelope. An insurance notice, red stamp reading past due. The recycling bin overflowed with hard seltzer cans. Michael is in the living room, I said. If you love him, come help. She rolled her eyes and took a swallow from her cup. He hates when I fuss. I did not argue. I turned and went back to my son. He had tried to sit up and failed. His breath came in short, rough pulls. I slid my arm behind his shoulders and lifted enough to tilt his head forward. Count with me, I said. In 2. Out 4. We did it together, slow as turning pages. Old habits returned. I scanned the room as if it were a reference desk and I had been asked for the truth. On the TV stand, a hospital discharge folder lay half tucked under a magazine. Pulled it free. The date on the top sheet was 2 weeks ago. The diagnosis line read, decompensated cirrhosis. There were instructions in bold about lactulose dosing and fluid restriction. A signature at the bottom, Michael Rogers. Sirens neared, low at first, rising. Relief washed my hands cold. Sarah came to the doorway then, arms folded. Up close I could see mascara flakes at the corner of her eye. He does this, she said. He works himself up. He is not worked up, I said. He is ill. The front door opened and 2 EMTs came in. One tall woman with a blonde braid tucked under her cap. One compact man whose badge read as Romero. Who is the patient? The woman asked. Michael Rogers, I said. I am his mother. He has a history of liver disease. He is having trouble breathing. They moved together with the careful speed of people who have done this 1,000 times. Oxygen cannula. Pulse oximeter. Blood pressure cuff. Numbers became a language in the air. SPO 286 on room air, Romero said. Let us get him on 2 liters, the woman answered, already turning the knob. Michael's eyes fluttered at the touch of the cool oxygen. His chest loosened a fraction. Mom, he said again, apology caught in it. I am here. Sarah hovered, then retreated when the EMT lifted Michael's shirt to check for edema. His abdomen was stretched tight as a drum. Spider-thin veins laced the skin. The compact EMT pressed his thumb near the shin. The skin kept his print. How long has he been like this? The woman asked. Shortness of breath since yesterday, Sarah said from the doorway, voice now thin. He said he was fine. I looked at her. She had never liked silence. She filled it now with something like a defense. He hates hospitals. The EMT nodded without judgment. Most people do. She turned to me. He needs to go in. Are you coming in the transport? Yes. They lifted him with a practiced count. His hand found my sleeve and held. I would have gone anywhere. As they moved him toward the door, the party pressed itself into the hallway, faces arranged in that careful expression people wear when tragedy walks through their evening plans. Someone whispered, Is he going to be okay? Nobody made space until Romero said, Back up, please, in a voice that left no choice. At the threshold, Sarah reached for my arm. Her fingers were cold. Elizabeth, this is not what it looks like, I said, because it was, and I would not let her finish the sentence. Do not judge me, she whispered. You do not understand our life. I looked past her to the table, to the receipts, to the open prescription bottles without caps. I understand pieces, I said. The rest can wait. Outside, evening had deepened. Blue light spun silently against the stucco and the oleander hedge. A neighbor stood on his porch with a small dog and did not pretend he was not watching. The EMTs slid Michael into the ambulance and clipped belts. The tall woman handed me a clipboard. Primary contact? Elizabeth Rogers. I printed my name and my number with the librarian's block letters. No flourish. There is power in being legible. Sarah came down the path at a half-run, bare feet slapping the concrete. She hugged herself and tried to tuck hair behind her ear. I will follow, she said, glancing back at the glow of the house where someone had already turned the music on low again, as if quiet could erase what had happened. Bring his folder, I said. And the medications. All of them. Her mouth tightened. I do not know where. On the table, I said. Brown vials. White labels. Bring them. The ambulance doors closed on the last word. Inside, the air had the clean, sharp smell of oxygen and plastic. Romero read out numbers. The tall woman adjusted the flow. Michael's eyes tracked me. I braced one hand against the metal rail and one over his wrist where his pulse beat thin and stubborn. Breathe, I said. In 2. Out 4. We pulled away from the curb. As the house slid from view, the mailbox sagged open like a mouth too tired to close. On the porch, a single envelope skittered in the drafts of our departure and fell face down. I watched until the corner turned out of sight. The operator had promised help. Help had come. Facts had begun to line up, uninvited and clear. I held my son's hand and counted the way we had practiced when he was small and afraid of the dark. In 2. Out 4. The siren found its voice and opened the road. The emergency department swallowed us in light. White walls, disinfectant, the constant rhythm of machines and voices layered one over another. Michael lay on the gurney as they wheeled him through double doors, his thin hand still gripping mine. I followed, careful not to slow them, the strap of my bag cutting into my shoulder. Severe ascites, one of the doctors said as if reciting from a page. Possible hypoxemia. Get labs CMP LFTs INR ammonia. Page hepatology. A nurse clipped bracelets around Michael's wrist, barcodes printed in clean black. Another placed a mask over his face and checked the oxygen flow. My eyes caught on the monitor. Pulse 128. Oxygen saturation 90% despite the tube. They pushed him into a curtained bay. A doctor in green scrubs stepped in, tall, hair tied back. She spoke quickly, efficiently. He is in decompensated cirrhosis. Has he been taking lactulose? Diuretics? I lifted the discharge folder I had brought from his house. These are his medications. The bottles were open but not used properly. She skimmed the papers. His bilirubin is climbing. We will admit him. Does he have a primary caregiver? I will stay with him, I said. I am his mother. She gave me a brief, searching look, then nodded. It will be a difficult course. We will need family decisions later. Her words folded into the air like stones sinking in water. Difficult course. Family decisions. Michael dozed under the mask, his breath easier now with oxygen. I touched his arm. The warmth of his skin was fragile, like heat that could vanish any moment. Hours passed. Nurses drew blood, set 4 lines, charted numbers on the screen. I sat in the vinyl chair, oatmeal cookies untouched in my bag. Every so often I counted the rise and fall of his chest. 20 breaths per minute. 19. 22. At 2 in the morning, the curtains parted and Sarah appeared. Her silver dress had been replaced by jeans and a sweatshirt, but the scent of alcohol still clung to her. Her eyeliner was half removed, leaving dark shadows under her eyes. She looked around the room quickly, as if searching for an exit. I came, she said. Her voice was sharp, defensive, not tender. I cannot stay long. Michael stirred at her voice. His eyelids fluttered. He tried to lift his hand. Sarah leaned close, kissed the air near his forehead, then straightened. He looks worse than I thought, she whispered. He is critical, I said evenly. The doctors explained his liver is failing. She shifted her weight, looked at the machines, then at the floor. I cannot look at this. She backed toward the curtain. I will come again later. But she did not. I sat alone through the night, through the morning rounds, through the beeping of monitors and the constant shuffle of carts. By noon, a hepatology specialist came with papers. Mrs. Rogers, your son's condition is severe. Cirrhosis stage 4. He will need close management, possibly transplant evaluation. Does he have insurance? Yes, but I am not sure of the details, I admitted. We will check. It is important to maintain his medications. He needs someone consistent. Otherwise, he risks hepatic encephalopathy, infection, even death. I nodded, absorbing each word as if shelving volumes in a library. Facts in order, cataloged. When the doctor left, I opened my notebook. I wrote the exact words. Stage 4 cirrhosis. Needs transplant evaluation. Critical. Must adhere to meds. Evidence, not fear. I wrote the date. April 14, 2023. I underlined it twice. Later that day, a social worker arrived. We usually discuss caregiving, she said gently. Spouses often take the lead. His wife has not stayed, I said. I will manage for now. The social worker made a small note. She did not argue. Sarah texted at 4:52 p.m. Sorry, too hard to see him like that. You are strong. Take care of it for me. No mention of the medications, no question about the doctor's words. Just a message that slid responsibility off her shoulders and onto mine. I read it twice, then wrote it in my notebook, copying it word for word, date and time. Evidence. My librarian's training told me never to trust memory alone. Documentation protects truth. That evening, Michael whispered. Mom, I am sorry. There is nothing to be sorry for, I told him. We will follow the plan. Medicines on schedule. No more skip doses. His eyes watered. She hates hospitals. I know. My voice was steady. But you are not alone. When visiting hours ended, I stood outside under the pale hospital lights, my phone heavy in my hand. I considered calling Sarah, asking her to return. But then I remembered the bottles without caps, the receipts for liquor, the laughter spilling into the hallway while my son gasped for air. Something had cracked inside me. Not loudly, but with a quiet, decisive sound like glass under pressure. I realized I could not wait for Sarah to take responsibility she had already abandoned. If Michael was to live, it would be because I carried the weight, not because she finally chose to. I walked back inside, notebook under my arm, ready to ask the nurse for every schedule, every dosage, every detail. Love is not money. Love is presence, fact, and follow-through. Michael remained in the hospital 2 weeks. Each day I sat by his bed with my notebook open, recording numbers, blood pressure, bilirubin, creatinine, ammonia levels. The nurses grew used to my presence. One of them, a young man named Jordan, nodded whenever he saw me write. Smart, he said once. Keep records. Families forget, but paper does not. Michael's color improved slightly, though his eyes stayed yellow at the edges. When he was finally discharged, I carried the folder of instructions in my bag like a fragile book. Spironolactone 100 mg daily. Furosemide 40 mg daily. Lactulose 15 ml 3 times per day. Strict diet. Low sodium, no alcohol. Weekly laps. The nurse highlighted every line. Consistency is survival, she said. Sarah appeared at the hospital only once more before discharge. She signed the forms without reading, pen scratching fast, her phone buzzing in her hand. He will be more comfortable at home, she said, as though comfort were the same as safety. Then she slipped away, leaving me to organize the transport. I stayed in San Diego after he came home. I could not bring myself to return to Seattle, not while the mailbox still overflowed and his medication sat uncapped on the table. I rented a small room near the trolley station. Each morning I walked to his house and counted the pills. Each evening I checked that he had taken them. My notebook filled with columns of dates, dosages, and small notes about his breathing. At first Sarah pretended to cooperate. She sat at the table while I measured the syrup, nodded when I reminded her to call the clinic. But her eyes always drifted to her phone. Once, as I poured the lactulose into a measuring cup, I caught her scrolling through photos of a party. Bright lights, raised glasses, the caption, "Celebrating life with the best crew." The date was the same day Michael had vomited blood and required urgent laps. By the 3rd week, her texts began. April 28, 9:14 p.m. Elizabeth, can you send $300? Pharmacy said insurance copay is too high. Michael needs it fast. I checked the receipt from that morning. Copay was $42. $16 already paid by card. I wrote both the text and the receipt copy into my notebook. Evidence. May 2nd, 11:07 a.m. We need help with house repairs. Michael can't rest with the bathroom leak. Maybe you can cover it? I asked the plumber myself. He told me the leak had been fixed last month, paid in cash by a young woman in a silver dress. May 5th, 8:23 p.m. You know you are the mother, right? It's your duty to step up. If Michael suffers because you don't help, how will you live with yourself? Her words were sharper now, no longer requests but commands dressed in guilt. I copied them word for word. Neighbors filled the gaps Sarah left. Mrs. Hernandez next door brought soup and whispered in Spanish that Sarah often came home at 2 or 3 a.m. Heels clicking, perfume trailing. Another neighbor, Mr. Parker, told me he had seen groups of strangers leaving the house with bottles at dawn. Every weekend is a party, he said. I don't know how your son rests at all. Michael, weakened and weary, never asked about money. He thanked me for soup, for laundry, for sitting with him during appointments. His voice was soft, embarrassed. I should manage it myself, he said once, but his hands trembled as he tried to sort the pill vials, and he let me take over. Sarah avoided me when she could. When she did speak, it was about bills, always vague. One evening she cornered me in the kitchen, lowering her voice to a tone she must have thought persuasive. Elizabeth, you know Michael's comfort is the most important thing. We should renovate the living room, new furniture, softer couch. He would heal better if he felt safe here. I looked at the stained sofa, springs pushing through the fabric, and thought of my own worn armchair in Seattle. Comfort was not leather upholstery. Comfort was medication given on time, food prepared without salt, bills paid honestly. He needs stability, not renovations, I said flatly. Her eyes flashed. You think you know everything, but you're just visiting. I'm his wife. I opened my notebook and turned it toward her. Here are the doctor's orders dated April 14th. Medications, diet, follow-up schedule. Show me where it mentions new furniture. She pushed the notebook away. You're controlling. That's why Michael doesn't tell you things. That night I walked back to my rented room with my chest tight. Her words echoed like poison. Controlling. I knew the tactic. Make the truth-teller look like the problem. I had read it in books, seen it in families at the library desk. But it is different when the accusation lands on your own name. 2 days later, Sarah texted again. I need cash tonight. Don't ask questions. Do it for Michael. The amount this time was $500. I ignored the message. 15 minutes later, she sent another. If you loved your son, you'd act. Don't make me tell him you refused. I did not answer. Instead, I added the messages to my evidence file. By mid-May, the pattern was plain. Sarah asked, threatened, accused. I checked, confirmed, documented. Receipts told one story, her words another. My notebook grew heavy with proof. Dates, amounts, neighbors' testimonies, doctors' notes. Every page was a barrier against the fog she tried to spread. At night, I lay awake in the rented room, hearing her phrases loop in my mind. It's your duty. You're controlling. You'll regret it if he suffers. They pressed like weights on my chest. But alongside them came another sentence, one I whispered into the dark until it steadied me. My money is off the table. Love is presence. Love is truth. But money misused is poison. And I would not hand my son poison disguised as help. By June, the whispers had begun. It started with a phone call from a woman I barely knew. A friend of a friend at church. Elizabeth, I don't want to meddle, she said cautiously. But people are talking. Sarah told us Michael's illness is genetic. She said it comes from your side. That's why he's so sick. The accusation struck like a slap. My side. My fault. I thanked her calmly, wrote down her words in my notebook, then sat in silence until the clock showed nearly midnight. The next day, Mrs. Hernandez knocked on my door. She held a bag of tamales, but her face carried worry. Señora, your daughter-in-law tells people you are controlling everything. She says you keep money away from her, that you want to manage Michael as if he were a child. Some neighbors believe her. I accepted the tamales, thanked her, and wrote every word down. Soon it was not just whispers. At the pharmacy, I overheard 2 women talking near the blood pressure machine. Poor Sarah, one said. She's trapped with that overbearing mother-in-law. No wonder she has to throw parties. She needs relief. They did not see me until I walked past. Their eyes widened, then dropped to the floor. I began to notice changes. Friends who once waved at me across the street now nodded stiffly, as if unsure. At the market, a clerk I had known for years avoided conversation. On social media I saw Sarah's posts. Photographs of gatherings, her arm around Michael when he was barely able to sit upright, captions written in sugary tones, caring for my love day by day. Some people make it harder, but we stay strong. The comments beneath praised her devotion. The truth twisted in my chest. I was the one tracking each pill, each lab result, each hospital bill. I was the one keeping him alive. Yet Sarah painted herself as the martyr, and me as the tyrant. The pressure grew. Sarah began leaving notes around the house. On the fridge. If Michael gets worse, remember it's because you never helped enough. On the bathroom mirror. Mothers should support, not control. On Michael's nightstand. She doesn't want you to heal, she wants to manage you. I collected them quietly, pressed each one flat into my notebook. Evidence. One afternoon I found Michael staring at his phone, his face pale. "Mom," he said hesitantly, "Sarah says you don't trust her. She says you tell people she wastes money." I sat beside him. I have never spoken against her. I only keep records of what is spent. He turned the phone so I could see. A message thread, Sarah's words scrolling. "Your mom tells neighbors you are broke because of me. She blames me for everything. She wants you to hate me." I closed my eyes for a moment, then opened them. Michael, facts matter. Look at these receipts. $189 for liquor, dated the night you collapsed. $74 for craft beer, the same day you vomited blood. Who purchased these? His lips pressed tight. He did not answer. "Do not believe whispers," I said softly. "Believe what you see. Believe what you hold in your hand." He nodded faintly, but I could feel his heart caught between loyalty to his wife and trust in me. That tension became its own illness. The gossip spread beyond neighbors. At church, during coffee hour, a woman approached me with pity in her eyes. "Elizabeth, I heard you're interfering too much. Maybe if you step back, Sarah could care for him better. Wives need space to look after their husbands." Her words were coated in sugar, but the blade was there. Step back. Let go. Be quiet. That night I walked to the trolley station with my notebook heavy in my bag. The city lights blurred against the evening fog. I felt the isolation settle around me. The circle of community I had once trusted was shrinking, twisted by Sarah's stories. But the notebook kept me steady. Every date, every figure, every copied message, every neighbor's testimony was there in ink. No rumor could erase it. One evening Sarah confronted me directly. She stood in the kitchen, wineglass in hand, voice pitched high. "Everyone says you're destroying this family. You want control. You want Michael to choose you over me. Admit it." I answered with the same tone I had used for years at the library desk when patrons grew loud. Calm, even factual. "Michael's doctor prescribed 3 medications. You did not purchase them." "I did." "His doctor required weekly labs. You did not drive him." "I did." "That is the record." "You twist everything," she hissed. "You make me look like a bad wife." "You write your own record," I said simply. "I only keep it." She slammed the glass onto the counter. Wine splashed, staining the wood. Then she stormed out, heels striking the floor in quick rhythm. After she left, I wiped the counter clean and added the detail to my notebook. June 14, 9:37 p.m. Argument in kitchen. Wine spill. Accusation, "You make me look like a bad wife." Response, "You write your own record. I only keep it." That night I repeated my refrain into the silence of my rented room. My money is off the table. It had become my shield. Whenever the gossip pressed, whenever the guilt clawed, I said it aloud. The pressure was meant to break me. Instead it hardened me. Each whisper became proof of the need for truth. Each accusation became another line in my growing archive. Love is not money. Boundaries are not cruelty. And lies, no matter how loud, cannot silence evidence written clear and dated. By July my notebook was thick with receipts, texts, and dates. Still, paper alone cannot always hold the weight of lies. I knew it was time to bring others into the circle. The first person I turned to was Michael's doctor. I requested a meeting in his office, my notebook open across the desk. Dr. Patel, I said, I need clarity. Has anyone besides me been paying for my son's medications or appointments? He checked the chart. No. Every copay has been under your name. No spouse or secondary payer. I copied his words into my notes. July 3, 10:45 a.m. Doctor confirms, no payments or visits from wife. Would you testify to that if necessary? I asked. He adjusted his glasses, studied me for a moment, then nodded. If it comes to that, yes. The next step was the neighbors. I began quietly, over cups of tea, over fences. Mrs. Hernandez told me again about Sarah's late-night parties. Cars all night, music too loud. Michael is never with them. He is in bed. I asked if she would write a statement. She hesitated, then agreed. I will sign my name. What she is doing is wrong. Mr. Parker, the man across the street, shook his head when I asked. Elizabeth, I don't like conflict. But if the court needs me, I'll tell what I saw. The parties, the drinking. Yes, I'll speak. I recorded each agreement, each date. At the library years ago, I had taught children how to gather sources for research. Always check facts from more than one witness, I told them. Now I followed my own advice. 3 neighbors for statements, all consistent. With this foundation, I made an appointment with a lawyer. His office was on the 3rd floor of a building downtown. The kind with humming fluorescent lights and old carpet. His name was Daniel Avery, mid-40s, careful eyes. I placed the notebook on his desk. I need to know if this evidence can protect my son. Sarah spends money meant for his care. She spreads lies about me. I will not finance her parties. But I must be sure Michael does not suffer from her neglect. He leafed through the pages. Receipts taped neatly, text copied word for word, dates aligned. You have done half my job, he said at last. This is thorough documentation. Very few clients come this prepared. Does it matter legally? I asked. Yes. If Michael's condition worsens, and if there is a question of financial abuse or medical neglect, this record will stand. You could petition for financial guardianship. Would that strip Sarah of control? He nodded. If a judge agrees she misused funds and neglected his care, yes. I sat straighter. Then I will proceed. From that day, I carried 2 copies of the notebook, the original locked in my rented room, and a duplicate I brought to appointments. Each time Sarah sent a message asking for money, I copied it. Each time a bill arrived unpaid, I added it. Sarah noticed the change. One evening, she confronted me as I left the house. Why are you writing everything down? Are you building a case against me? I did not answer her question directly. Facts matter, I said simply. They protect Michael. Her voice sharpened. You think you can turn everyone against me? People believe me, Elizabeth. They believe I'm the victim. You're just an old woman clinging to control. I met her eyes without raising my voice. Control is not my goal. Michael's survival is. She laughed brittle. Survival? He's already ruined. You should prepare for the worst instead of pretending. Her words chilled me, but I wrote them down. July 19, 8:12 p.m. Sarah. He's already ruined. That night I called Mr. Avery again. What if she begins to pressure him directly? What if she tries to sign over money or property? Then you need witnesses. Keep involving the neighbors, the doctors. If possible, obtain recordings with consent. And keep every receipt. I did. On July 23, Michael's lab results showed worsening numbers. Ascites returned. He required another paracentesis. I sat beside him while they drained the fluid, holding his hand, writing down every milliliter. Sarah did not come. Later she posted a photo of herself at a rooftop bar with friends, captioned, "Healing my heart with laughter." I printed it. Evidence. When Sarah learned of my lawyer, she grew frantic. She began sending messages to others, painting herself as cornered. Elizabeth is cruel, she wrote to church friends. She wants to steal Michael away from me. Some repeated her words back to me, but this time I was not shaken. Each lie became another proof of her fear. By August, my circle was strong. Dr. Patel, 3 neighbors, Mr. Avery, each one ready to testify. My notebook was no longer only mine. It was a shield built with others' signatures. One evening, Michael looked at me with tears in his eyes. Mom, you don't have to do all this. You're tired. I smoothed the blanket over his chest. I do it because love is presence. Love is truth. And truth must be protected. He closed his eyes, a tear slipping down his cheek. For the first time in months he whispered, "Thank you." That night, walking back to my room, I felt a shift. No longer isolated, no longer silenced. Sarah's pressure still pressed, but around me now stood a wall of fact and witness. And I knew the day would come when those walls would rise in court, and her lies would fall flat. The call came in September. Michael's heart gave out in the early hours of morning. The nurse's voice on the phone was quiet, steady, but the words still hollowed me. "We did everything we could." I arrived at the hospital before dawn. His body lay still, eyes closed, lips parted just slightly as though one more breath had been waiting. I sat beside him, my hand over his. The skin had already cooled. My notebook lay in my lap, useless now for his survival but not for the truth. I wrote one final line under his name. September 3rd, 4:42 a.m. Michael Rogers pronounced deceased. Grief does not erase clarity. Even as I mourned, I knew what lay ahead. Debts, inheritance, disputes. Sarah would not step aside quietly. Within days, papers arrived from her lawyer, claims to Michael's accounts, to insurance, even to items I had purchased myself during his illness. She requested full control of the estate. I contacted Daniel Avery and we prepared. The court date was set for late October. That morning the courthouse smelled of old wood and dust, the air heavy with echoes of other families' battles. I wore a plain navy dress, nothing dramatic, and carried both notebooks in my bag. Sarah arrived in a bright red jacket, flanked by two friends whispering in her ear. Her smile was confident, rehearsed, the kind of smile meant for photographs. The judge, a woman in her 60s with steel-gray hair, opened the session. "We are here regarding the estate of Michael Rogers." Sarah's lawyer spoke first. His voice was smooth. "My client, Sarah Rogers, as the legal spouse, requests full access to all financial accounts, property, and inheritance. She has been the primary caregiver and should rightfully manage these assets." Primary caregiver. The words rang like a false bell. Mr. Avery stood. "Your Honor, we dispute that claim. We will show evidence of neglect, misappropriation of funds, and false statements by Sarah Rogers. We will request that financial responsibility be granted to Elizabeth Rogers, the mother of the deceased, who provided consistent care and support documented by multiple witnesses." The judge raised an eyebrow. "Proceed." Mr. Avery opened the first notebook. "We present Exhibit A, detailed records kept by Elizabeth Rogers, including receipts, prescriptions, and daily notes from April through September." He handed copies to the judge. Pages showed my careful handwriting, taped receipts, printouts of messages. Exhibit B, statements from neighbors Mrs. Hernandez and Mr. Parker, testifying that Sarah Rogers frequently hosted parties while her husband lay ill. Exhibit C, confirmation from Dr. Patel that no payments were made by Sarah for medication or visits. The judge studied the documents. "Do the witnesses appear today?" "Yes," Mr. Avery said. "Both neighbors are present as well as Dr. Patel. They spoke clearly without embellishment." Mrs. Hernandez described cars at 3 a.m. Loud music, Sarah arriving home in heels. Mr. Parker confirmed seeing strangers leaving the house while Michael was bedridden. Dr. Patel stated calmly, "All payments came from Elizabeth Rogers. Mrs. Sarah Rogers attended only one appointment." Sarah shifted in her seat, face tightening. Her lawyer tried to object, but the judge silenced him with a hand. Exhibit D, Mr. Avery continued, includes printed copies of Sarah's social media posts, photographs of parties dated the same days as Michael's hospitalizations. Also included are text messages requesting money for medicine, in amounts far exceeding the actual costs. The judge flipped through the stack, pausing at one photo of Sarah holding a glass, captioned "Healing my heart with laughter." The timestamp matched Michael's emergency admission. The courtroom fell into a silence so sharp it pressed against the ears. Sarah broke first. "Those were misunderstandings. People took pictures out of context. Elizabeth hated me from the beginning. She wanted control. She is twisting everything." I stood when the judge nodded to me. My voice did not rise. It did not need to. Your Honor, I was a librarian for 40 years. My profession was keeping records. I did the same for my son when he grew too sick to protect himself. These are not accusations. They are facts, receipts, dates, witnesses. I have written nothing that cannot be confirmed by others. I opened the notebook and read aloud one entry. May 5, 8:23 p.m. Sarah texted. If you loved your son, you'd act. Don't make me tell him you refused. I held up my phone with the original thread displayed. This is not my word against hers. This is her own voice. Sarah's face flushed. She tried to speak, but her lawyer pressed her arm, shaking his head. The judge leaned forward. Mrs. Rogers, do you contest the authenticity of these records? Her silence was answer enough. After hours of testimony, the judge delivered the decision. Based on the evidence, it is clear that Sarah Rogers neglected her husband's care and misused funds. She is hereby stripped of access to the estate. Financial responsibility will be granted to Elizabeth Rogers for the purpose of settling debts and preserving remaining assets. This court will not reward negligence. The gavel struck wood. Final. Sarah stood abruptly, face twisted, but none of her friends met her eyes. They gathered their purses quietly and slipped out, leaving her alone in the aisle. I remained seated, hands folded over the notebook. No triumph, no gloating. Only the steady beat of truth affirmed. Weeks passed. The house felt emptier each time I stepped inside. Bills were paid, accounts closed, debts settled. No more parties, no more shouting. The silence now belonged to peace, not neglect. In November, I planted a young oak tree in the small patch of garden by the porch. The soil was cool, the roots fragile but determined. I pressed the earth down with both hands and whispered Michael's name. A neighbor's child wandered over, holding a ball. She looked at the small tree and asked, "Is this Michael's tree?" I smiled, my hand still in the dirt. "Yes. It will keep growing forever." The child nodded, satisfied, and ran off laughing. The sound lifted in the air, light and clear. I sat back on my heels, wiped soil from my palms, and breathed. For the first time in months, the breath came steady, unbroken. Love had not been money. Love had been presence, patience, truth. Boundaries had protected what lies tried to consume. And now, though loss remained, peace had returned. The tree stood quietly in the garden, its leaves trembling in the breeze. A living record, one that needed no notebook to endure. Stories like this remind us how fragile and strong the human heart can be. If you felt the same, let me know with a like and a comment. And subscribe to join me for more stories that reveal the truth behind our everyday lives. Until next time, take care of yourself and those you love.